come and speak with y'all today. I'm so excited to be here. I've enjoyed myself thus far, and I just pray what I have to say that it just touches and reaches someone. So when I was consulting the Lord about what I should talk about today, he basically just told me to share my story, share my journey on how I got to the place where I was able to experience self-love. And basically what God had given me was pretty much confirmed when I saw a post that Miss Sophia had posted on her Facebook where it said, "Don't be afraid to share your story. You never know who you will help. Be transparent." So today, that's just what I want to do. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to share my story and my testimony. I just pray that it helps someone here today. So when I was talking to God, okay, God, what am I going to say? How am I going to get this speech started on how I got to a place where I started to feel self-love? And God basically sent my focus to the title of this organization, which is Love You First. So I was focusing on Love You First. I just kept meditating on it, looking at it, and basically God told me to flip the words. Flip Love You First. And when I flipped the words, it read, "First you love." So I'm like, okay, first you love, first you love, first you love. And he said, "First you loved me." And that is where this journey of loving yourself first, that's where it began. You learn to love me. So basically, he was telling me through me giving my heart to him and allowing him to pour his love into me, this is how I was able to experience that type of love. So we all know that the biggest example that we have of God's love is how he died on the cross for our sins. That is the most selfless thing that anyone could ever do. I mean, would you put your child on a cross and die for people that you don't know? No, you wouldn't. But God did that for us. And that is one of the biggest examples that we have. But let's bring it a little bit more home, because we all know that, yes, we believe that in our hearts that he did that, but we wasn't there to see that. But what are some things that we have now that God is able to show us that love? And that's through our storms. Through our storms is how God is able to share his love to us. So I remember maybe about 2 years back, I remember I was going through, and it's ironic how some of you guys were giving your testimonies to some of the things I'm going to talk about today. But I remember when I was going through a situation in my life, the Lord sent me to a sermon that's by this guy named Charles Stanley, who's a pastor. And he was basically talking about storms. And when we think about storms, it's so many negative things that we think about. We think of the pain, the hardship, the suffering, the agony, the crime, the sleepless nights, the depression. We think about all those things when we hear the word storms. But basically, this pastor was reminding us that storms have a purpose. There's a purpose behind every storm that we go through. God does not do them for no reason. There's a purpose behind it. So just to share my personal testimony, it's been about maybe 2.5 years ago. I was living in Birmingham, and I was going through therapy school, and I had been with this guy for maybe about 7 or 8 years. I was at this place where I was like, notice how many times I say I in this testimony. I said to myself, we were talking, we was like, when I graduate, we were going to get married. I had already invested my future in him. We were looking at rings, looking at places to stay. I just knew that when I graduated, that was the person that I was going to be with. I just knew it. I just had that feeling that he was the one. But I just knew once I got finished that that's where I was going to be. And I say, we was getting closer to me graduating, and he came to me and told me that I have something to tell you. And he basically told me that he had did something with a young lady. At that moment, at that part of my life, I felt so broken. Y'all were talking about that. So defeated. I was like, Lord, I have invested my future in this man. I knew I was going to marry him. I knew. And the vision that I had for myself had shattered in front of me. And that was one of the toughest seasons I had went through, storms I had been through at that age. Because I had never experienced so much hurt. But one thing I like about God, he does everything with intent and with purpose. He allowed me to be in Birmingham, out of my comfort zone. because my mama wasn't there, my best friend wasn't there. I was there by myself. And this is where the storm took place, because that is where he wanted to pour out his love to me. That is when he wanted to show me, look, you don't need a man. You don't need mama. You don't need your best friend. You need me. I'm the one that you need to get through this. Even though you're hurting, you're already little, but you done lost so much weight. People are seeing it. You don't want to go to work. You feel depressed. You're having sleepless nights. You're crying. I am the one. Not you, but I am the one who is going to be there for you in the midst of this storm. And in the midst of that, I'm going to pour out my love so heavy on you that you won't need a man to validate you. So it was in the midst of that time, guys. I say it's been about 2 years ago, where God allowed me to experience that love that he had. I had never experienced such a love. And he allowed me to see that in the midst of that storm. So it brings me to a point that Mr. Stanley had brought up, where God uses storms to reveal things about you that you didn't know you already had housed inside of you. God allows those storms to bring that out of you. So in 2 Corinthians 12, it talks about Paul, how he was going through this situation where he had a thorn in his flesh, and how 3 times he had asked the Lord to remove that thorn out of his flesh. That was a storm that Paul was going through in 2 Corinthians. And God, when he asked God to remove that thorn, and it's so many times we do that when we're going through storms, like, Lord, would you just take this away? Like, this hurts so bad. What is the point of me going through this? And when Paul asked him that question, he replied saying, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. So because of that storm, Paul realized that I'm going to praise. I am going to find pleasure in my hardships, because I know in my hardships, for when I am weak, that's when I am the most strong. Why am I the most strong? Because he's going to give me all the strength that I need to get through it. So in the midst of my storm is when I developed self-love. That is how I learned to love myself. That is when, in the midst of that, when I was by myself, how God would reveal to me through his word that I'm more precious than rubies, that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. All those things, God showed me my validation in him, and how I didn't need my validation in man. And just like Ayla was saying, you know, with me being that age, I just had my life set up to where I was going to finish school, I was going to get married, going to have children, and all these things. And I'm like, well, now that's not going to happen. And what are people going to think? I've been with this guy for so long. But God had to show me that I don't find my validation in man, and not to worry about what they think. Long as me and you have a relationship, that's all that matters, because I'm going to order your steps, and I'm going to direct you, because I have a purpose and a plan for everything that I do. So with that, what do I want you guys to get from this? That one, that your voices need to be heard. Coming here, I was like, you know, am I going to have anything to say to these people? But your testimonies can help someone. The words that you have, they're going to help the next person. We've experienced that already, how just speaking to each other and sharing our testimonies, our voices have helped. They inspire and light, and we've connected through our testimonies. God does everything with intent. That's the second thing. Everything that God does in our lives, whether we understand them or not, they're intentional. God is an intentional God, and he does everything with intent. The third things are storms have a purpose. Storms are not always bad. For we know, if we read the Bible, in Romans 8:28, all things work together for our good. So whether that storm feels like it's beating us down, that thing is going to work for us. The fourth thing is God's love is transforming, and it brings about change. Through God's love, like I said earlier, I was able to see myself in a different light. Before that storm, I would not have ever been able to go somewhere and eat lunch by myself, take myself to the movies, I would not have been able to do that. But now it does not bother me to go to a restaurant, give me my steak and my potatoes, and eat it like it's free. It does not bother me because it's like a love that I have for myself. Long as I know that God loves me and how He's shown His love to me, I don't need nobody else. Now, if you bring a Lord, that's okay. But I don't need nobody else because His love is sufficient. The fifth thing, self-love and learning to love yourself first. It brings about so much freedom. It does not happen overnight, you guys. It's a process. But when it does happen, it brings about so much freedom. You just feel so free to know that you don't need anybody else to validate me. I have the love for myself, and that's what matters. So that is how you get your life back. Just knowing that whatever I go through is going to work out for my good, and that self-love is just